Pittsburgh Steelers lost their inside linebacker on Thursday. Cole Holcomb had surgery or is set to have surgery. Will miss the remainder of the season after a real gruesome knee injury. Thoughts and prayers to Cole Holcomb. Obviously, the Pittsburgh Steelers got to replace an inside linebacker, a guy that was playing very well up until this point, that was, a leader, especially with the communication in the middle of that defense. They'll move to Quan Alexander and Landon Roberts. Mark Robinson is also on the team. Before we get into ways that the Pittsburgh Steelers could add to their inside linebacker room, how big of a blow is this to their defense, and can they overcome it easily with the Landon Roberts and Quan Alexander, or is it going to be a pretty tall task?
Well, it's a huge loss. Like you said, Cole had been playing really well, which is just funny to think about. Like, I think, at the beginning of training camp, we were watching him get torched by Calvin Austin while we were wearing shorts, and we're like, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. And we got I got proven wrong pretty quickly. So Cole's been really good. This is a huge loss, but I mean, this is why you have both Landon Roberts, and then you went to get Quan Alexander later. I think calling it an easy thing to overcome, I don't think that's necessarily fair, but I do think the Steelers are built as a roster to overcome this loss better than another team might. They've got some good depth there. You need to plug some smaller holes in the process, but I feel like, at the very top end of their depth chart at linebacker, they're really well positioned to handle this loss, because I think Quan had been playing really well too. I mean, Landon Roberts had been solid as well. Like, they've got 3 starter capable inside linebackers. So it's just about managing their workload so that, as they get down the home stretch of the season, you're not, putting too much on Landon Roberts, who we were talking before, plays special teams too. Like, you don't want to put too much on their plate as they try to make up for a pretty big loss in the middle there.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's of all the positions, it's probably the best one to suffer an injury at if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. But just like who it was, like Holcomb was the guy. He was the 3-down inside linebacker. He was the guy that you could use in run support and as a coverage option. He was playing real well, like we said. Like, yeah, it is a huge blow for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they do have Quan. I expect Quan to, I think Quan's played very well throughout the season, just like you said. He could step in and be your coverage guy. He could be your 3-down linebacker. I think he's proven that in the NFL. Landon Roberts all 3 of them have been listed as a starter every single week. So, and they've been introduced as a starter every single week. So I don't expect that I don't expect you to notice a downgrade. Like, I don't expect them to take a drop in success at inside linebacker. I think the bigger question is, how ready is Mark Robinson to start filling a role there and be a contributor on defense? Do the Pittsburgh Steelers have to find another coverage guy? Because right now Quan is really your only option and Mark Robinson just isn't that. And at the same time, how healthy is Minkah Fitzpatrick? How soon is he going to come back? Because if you could get Minkah back, you can start utilizing Keanu Neal as an inside linebacker a little bit more. And I don't think that's like the Steelers' top option, but I do think it is an option for the Pittsburgh Steelers, with the injury to Cole Holcomb. So Mark Robinson, expecting him to kind of be in the fold. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they signed former Atlanta Falcons, I hope I'm saying this first name right, Michael Walker, to their practice squad last week. This is a guy that started 12 games for the Atlanta Falcons last season. He is a 4th-round pick in the 2020 draft for them. He's played at least 16 games his first 3 seasons in the league. He's got 107 tackles last year, 1 sack, 6 pass deflections, and 2 interceptions, 4 tackles for loss for the Falcons. When he was released, it was just a giant question mark. You read reports from the AP. There was no explanation given on why they moved on from him, and it doesn't seem to be an injury or anything. He was on another practice squad this season, so it's still a little surprising that he hasn't been on an active roster, and it's week 10 in the NFL. The Steelers could call him up. Do you expect that to happen? And do you look at that as a viable enough option for the Steelers to say, okay, we're okay, we can move forward with these 4 guys?
I mean, it seems like they kind of have to call him up. Like, there's, at the very least, to be a body on special teams and take something off of Landon Roberts and Mark Robinson's plate, like we said, so that they are, kind of fully focused on being the guys who can fill in for Cole Holcomb. But this seems like a player that could be pretty reliable for them. I mean,
Yeah.
like he was a starter in the NFL last year and a pretty good one at that. He's pretty young. He's only 26 years old. I like former fourth round pick. Like there's a lot to like about Michael Walker here. So I would expect them to call them up, and it seems like a little bit of a no brainer, right? Like,
Yeah.
you have a free spot at linebacker. This seems like this seems like the best linebacker on the practice squad available right now, and the rest of the free agent market for linebackers is not very promising at all. So this seems like your best bet if you're the Steelers right now.
Yeah, I agree. Like you just don't you look at the free agents just available right now, there's really almost none. Like you could make a call to Nick Kwiatkowski if you want to, I guess. I don't even know if he's healthy right now. Besides that, you got almost nobody. Yeah, I mean, you could call John Bostic if you want John Bostic back on the team, but I don't know what he offers that a Mark Robinson doesn't, and I don't know his special teams value. I think the fact that Walker is 26 years old, like you said, plays a huge factor in this. 2 seasons ago, he played 73% of the team's defensive snaps or special team snaps. So I feel like that is huge as well. I think that it's a good option. It's not your, clearly it's still a downgrade from Cole Holcomb, but somehow the Steelers lucked into this one. Like they signed him 2 days before the game and they lose their starting inside linebacker. And now they have an option to call up from the practice squad and say, hey, well, you just got to be inside linebacker 4. This is fine, and then maybe they move forward. I don't mind the pick, like we said, or mind the signing if that's the way that they go. Like we said, it's still a downgrade. It still stinks that Holcomb will miss that time, but they do have it's crazy to think about. A year ago, if this would have happened, I mean, there's nothing. The Steelers would have been in the worst situation of all time. They already were. Like you think about a year ago where it's Robert Spillane, Miles Jack, Devin Bush with Mark Robinson filling in and working his way into a starting role by the end of the season. This year, it's Cole Holcomb, Landon Roberts, Quan Alexander, and you lose an inside linebacker, and you still have a guy in the practice squad who started 12 games last season and looked pretty okay that you could call up to your right. Like, shout out Omar Khan, man. That guy,
Yeah.
sneaky good move sometimes that you don't get to appreciate until bad things happen, and you're like, oh wow, look at this. Like, how far he's come in such a short time, just in one position. So yeah, hopefully that's the move. We'll see what happens. I'm sure a move will be made either today or probably tomorrow, depending on how they view the situation and when they announce Holcomb's going to end up on IR.